What's up, my friends in film fandom, wherever you may be and however you may be watching? Thank you so much for giving us a little bit of your time. Boy, it's nice to go back and do these retro reviews because we get to pull out some absolute bangers, and it seems like every episode, one of us brings up another movie that's like, we got to do this one. And we're like, oh, shit, yeah, why have we never done this before? Well, basically, it's because there's only so many hours in the day, and we all have jobs and lives. Other than that, we'd be banging out videos just like this 4 or 5 times a day. I promise it'd be awesome. But we got a good one tonight. Here to talk about all the RoboCop goodness. Here's my hetero life mate, Jeremy. What's up, brother?
Not much. My supposed prime directive was to try to make something that remotely relates to this fucking movie in the 2 goddamn days I had to do something. So I present to you my shoddy version of I am definitely Slim Shady, aka Eminem, Marshall Mathers. Because Detroit. And yeah, Detroit. Stop telling me to watch a movie like 2 days before we do it. I also don't have a RoboCop outfit, so I'm sorry.
I was really hoping you were gonna come like in full regalia, full like armor and everything.
Yeah, no, I don't.
I knew that'd be asking a lot. Even for an expert like you, I knew that was a big ask. I was asking a lot.
I don't. I'm trying to find some armor for a different cosplay, but the closest thing I have is like a little riot shield from when I cosplayed as the PUBG guy. I'm like, yeah, but I'd look ridiculous with just the helmet. So I don't know.
You could have just had Frank. Right. You could have just had Frank shoot you a whole bunch of times, and it'd just be a bloody mess on the couch there. That'd have been cool.
Could have been Murphy.
Yeah, it could have been Murphy.
Then, of course, our good friend, the Shape from the Lone Star State, someone who has done all kinds of questionable things for $1. Our man Tex, what's up, brother?
Hey, $20 is $20. I don't want to hear about it, but no, in the coming future war of Terminators, we might need to start working on this RoboCop thing because I think that's the only answer. So, we're really going to need to start sacrificing some brave police officers to be our guards for the oncoming Skynet mess we're going to be into. So, yeah, what's up,
Absolutely. But like I said, we're here tonight to talk about the 1987 absolute gem that is RoboCop. RoboCop is a 1987 American science fiction action film directed by Paul Verhoeven and written by Edward Neumeier and Michael Miner. The film stars Peter Weller, Nancy Allen, Daniel O'Hurley, Ronny Cox, Kurtwood Smith, and Miguel Ferrer. It's set in a crime-ridden Detroit in the near future, well, near to 1987 anyway. And RoboCop centers on police officer Alex Murphy, who was murdered by a gang of criminals and subsequently revived by the megacorporation Omni Consumer Products, or OCP, as the cyborg law enforcer RoboCop. Unaware of his former life, RoboCop executes a brutal campaign against crime while coming to terms with the lingering fragments of his humanity. Since its release, RoboCop has been critically reevaluated and it has been hailed by some as one of the best films of the 1980s and one of the greatest science fiction and action films ever made. The film has been lauded for its depiction of a robot affected by the loss of humanity in contrast to the stoic and emotionless robot characters of that era. The film has continued to be analyzed for themes such as the nature of humanity, personal identity, corporate greed and corruption, and is seen as a rebuke of the Reaganomics policies of its era. The success of RoboCop created a franchise compromising of sequels RoboCop 2, which came out in 1990, RoboCop 3 in 1993, and as well as an animated series, multiple live-action TV shows, video games, comic books, toys, clothing, and plenty of other merch. A remake was released in 2014, and a direct sequel to the original film, tentatively titled RoboCop Returns, is actually in development as of 2020. It will supposedly ignore other entries in the series after the first one, which is kind of unfortunate because I actually think RoboCop 2 is pretty good. The film was a financial and critical success with a box office gross of over $53 million against a budget of $13.7 million. On review aggregator Rotten Tomatoes, the film is certified fresh with 91% critic score with 82 reviews, as well as an audience review score of 84%. The consensus review reads, quote, while over the top and gory, RoboCop is also a surprisingly smart sci-fi flick that uses ultra-violence to disguise its satire of American culture. Boy, there's a whole lot to say about this movie from a lot of different angles. Tex, I'll go to you first. Give me a brief paragraph, some of your thoughts on RoboCop before we get into all the spoilery goodness.
I've always thought RoboCop was a trauma film with a budget. Originally, this film was rated X for violence and just it has RoboCop has a sleazy kind of grindhouse gore, hardcore effect that just is amazing to me. I've always loved this film. I mean, obviously shot in Dallas, the ones who don't know. It just, this movie feels, it's an 80s action thriller cop sci-fi film, but the violence and the gore make it feel like it's a 70s. And it's a lot of fun to watch. You know, even if you've seen this movie 100 times, it's one you can always enjoy. And it's you know, when if you want to go ranking 80s films, especially action movies, this one definitely has to be up there. To me, it's right up there with Predator for 80s action. I love this film.
Yeah, Jeremy, how about you? Give me some quick thoughts. What you think about RoboCop?
I mean, like you said, I mean, I would consider this part one of the best movies that come out of the 80s. It's got, you know, like over the top, brutal violence. I mean, which is probably a typical Tuesday in Detroit, but you know, it's got, of course, the sci-fi element with him. You know, basically they have technology to rebuild him. I know it's the wrong series, but whatever. He'll be back. Yeah, okay, whatever.
Sure.
But anyway,
that works too.
You hit the trifecta. There you go. I love it.
I can do it. Yeah, and it's, I mean, honestly, it's got some emotional beats. You know, it's like when you don't have your humanity or your emotions anymore, but man, it's like there's still something lingering there. It's like, damn, dude, it hits pretty deep. This almost borderlines on almost like a horror movie too, a little bit. You know, so it's
well, especially if you watch the full-on rated X version, not the theatrical. I mean, this thing's gory as hell. I love it.
Oh yeah, like I said, you open up with dude getting like mag dumped into himself about 30 times over. And I mean, it may have been where the inspiration came from, but I'm telling you, the beginning of this movie was probably the inspiration for Fallout New Vegas. I mean, dude gets torn apart, you're on your knees, and he, put the gun to your head, boom, shoot you. But through the miracle of science fiction and technology, they brought him back, and then it's like, all right, who the hell shot me? I'm gonna kill you now. Gonna go put a foot in Red Foreman's ass for being a dumbass. Dumbass.
Yeah, I agree with everything you guys said. I mean, it's a very complete movie. I mean, like I said, the 80s, there was a mad volume of stuff in the 80s. So to really stand out amongst that mad sea of stuff that was coming out, it doesn't mean it means something. You know what I mean? There was a lot of movies that came out, a lot of really good movies that were kind of lost in the fray. I'm glad that this one has kind of been looked upon as one of the greats of that era, because it really does do a lot of things well. I mean, obviously the action stuff, that's kind of easy. It's got a pretty good story. You get really attached to Murphy's character very, very quickly. You get attached to some of the secondary characters as well. I mean, it's real easy to get attached to what's her name, Nancy Allen's character.
Lewis.
Yeah, Lewis. I mean, you really do hate her. God, she's annoying. You really do kind of hate the bad guys. I mean, it's you get really kind of emotionally invested in these people, either because you love them or you hate them. So this movie, it drives your emotions really, really, really hard at various points in the movie in a couple different directions. But yeah, I mean, special effects, I'll talk about those more here in a minute. If I have one gripe on this movie, it's kind of the special effects anymore. I mean, yeah, I know it's 80s, they're going to look a little dated, but some 80s movies age better than the others.
I thought this was pretty damn good, even for the time it was in.
I kind of forgive it for the time period it's in, honestly.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it's overall, it's one of the better movies to come out of a great era of filmmaking in the late 70s up to the early 90s, that kind of stuff, where generally a lot of stuff was a lot of style and not a lot of substance. But this movie had a lot of both. I mean, again, the little bit of social commentary that was smartly worked in there, this idea of of Paul Verhoeven's vision of the future if corporate greed and industrialism kind of took over everything was on display. It was kind of frightening from that perspective as well. It's actually a really good movie kind of all around. And, I think a good place to start breaking it all down is we talk about the director himself, Paul Verhoeven. I mean, this guy ruled the 90s. I mean, he came out with RoboCop in 1987. Then he comes out with Total Recall in 1990, another great action-y movie. Basic Instinct, which came out in 1992. that other great dramatic piece, Showgirls '95. Whatever. I'm not a big fan of the movie. It's got some positive.
I love that movie.
And then he's got one of the movies that a lot of people think is one of the worst films ever made. I actually think this movie is actually quite fun to watch. That's Starship Troopers. I know that you say what you want about the movie. I know it wasn't anywhere near the book. I know that there was a lot of stuff about it that people can complain about. I think that movie is a lot of fun. And then he starts off the new millennium in the year 2000 with the movie Hollow Man with Kevin Bacon and Elizabeth Shue, another really exciting kind of suspenseful film. Jeremy, I'll go to you first. I mean, Paul Verhoeven. That's kind of the 13 or 14 years that he was at the top of the game. I mean, what do you think about Paul Verhoeven and his body of work here in the United States?
Oh yeah, like you said, you mentioned any one of those movies, and it's like if you've at least seen one of them, I mean, you understand the level this guy's on. I mean, keeping with RoboCop, I mean, it's even kind of funny that like watching it. I wasn't there for that time period, but I mean, watching it kind of removed from it now, and it's like you can kind of laugh at it that it's. Like you said, it's got that smart commentary about it. And it even throws in like little goofy commercials every once in a while into the movie. I'm like, yeah, right. Because sadly, that's kind of a thing now. Like even the guys are taking a piss and you can't sit there and you got to watch the stocks go by right in front of your face. You know what I mean? Like, ain't no joke. I mean, you're sitting there trying to pump your gas and the guy's going to tell you about the weather and who got shot this week. I'm like, I don't care. Like, I'll watch it on my own time. But, yeah. I mean, yeah, just mostly hits. I mean, like you said, there's a couple misses, but hey, what are you going to do? He guy knows what he's doing.
Well, those movies that I read off, I mean, starting with RoboCop in '87 and finishing up with Hollow Man in the year 2000, those were all the movies he did between that time frame. And then before that, he had done, I think, one smaller project here in the States, but it was mostly based in Europe, doing a lot of European film. And then after Hollow Man, went back to Europe. And he hasn't done anything in the U.S. since, except for this one project that I think he has that was in post-production last I checked. I don't know much about it. I was just kind of reading about it a little bit the other night. But, I mean, this guy, all of his work here in the United States has been stupidly successful. I mean, it's made a ton of money. Tex, what do you think about Paul Verhoeven? I mean, which one of these individual efforts of his stands out to you?
I love this guy's movies. This guy is just like this shy of being like a porn director. He's got the sleeves factor that I really appreciate. When you watch his movies, it's got like he has like an underlying, it's not quite creepy, but it's like he doesn't mind going to the dark side of things. I mean, I love Hollow Man. Hollow Man is my favorite Invisible Man movie, even over the original Universal pictures. If you haven't seen Showgirls, that is a movie you must watch. It's not a good movie, but it's a fun movie to watch. It's these crazy women just getting naked and dancing. How do you not enjoy that? Come on, it's a great film. Starship Troopers. It's in a weird way, you could put RoboCop in Starship Troopers world, and like they could be on the same timeline of sorts. It's really odd how they kind of. I've never paired them together, but I might try to do that one day. They work well together. This guy's done great work. I mean, he's Dutch, I believe. I believe is what he is. I've never seen any of his work over in Europe, but just from the projects that you listed here, this dude's he's done a lot of good work, and go through. He has one of the most solid filmographies of a lot of '80s directors. I mean, a lot of them didn't get a lot of chances, but this guy did, and we're all better for it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if you look at all the American films that I listed, if you look at all of them and kind of one by one, kind of take a moment to examine them. You have RoboCop, which, like I said, was an interesting his vision, his satire of what the future could look like with all this corporate imperialism. You look at Total Recall, kind of the same effects. I mean, you've got this big company trying to take over Mars and do whatever. A lot of the same stuff. Basic Instinct was a much more personal issue, but again, it's about kind of the evil that can exist, inside of a person. It's been a while since I've seen Basic Instinct. I might have to revisit that. Showgirls is the same thing. I know we kind of scoff at that movie a little bit, but the reality is we forget how cutthroat and dirty businesses like that can be, of being a showgirl in Vegas. And so, I mean, there's one scene where the chick pushes the one chick down a flight of stairs so she can hurt her and take her job. I don't know how much more brutal and mean you could be other than that. I mean, short of Nancy Kerrigan and taking a fucking stick and whacking her knee, that's about as brutal as it gets. I mean, that's
eat your heart out, Tanya Harding.
And yeah, and the scary part about that thing in Showgirls is like that's a very real scenario. It's not like, you know, the bugs in outer space that launched, you know, some rocks at us to blow up Rio de Janeiro. Now we got to fight them on some other planet. That stuff's kind of cartoonish and outlandish. We never see ourselves in that position. But I mean, this is something that exists in real life. These showgirls fighting for this position. And then you have Hollow Man, which again, it kind of takes that classic story of the Invisible Man, but it makes it really, really scary. That's a great kind of psychological horror.
So good in that.
Oh yeah,
Kevin Bacon is so good in that movie.
Yeah, that's a great psychological horror film, and all these things were put together, a bunch of different angles, a bunch of different views of the human condition by this one guy, Paul Verhoeven. And I think it's fantastic. Like I said, I haven't read much about this new project he's got coming out here in the States. I mean, Christ, the guy's 80-something years old, so I don't know exactly how involved he was or exactly how in-depth this project's going to be. But, I mean, just knowing what I know about him and some of the stuff that he's done, I really kind of want to take a look at this project to see if he's continuing to put that kind of effort into satirizing what we've become as human beings, what we've evolved to this point. But, I can't knock Paul Verhoeven at all. I mean, like I said, the guy ruled the 90s. I mean, starting with RoboCop in 1990, and then all the ones that he came out with. I mean, those are really good movies. He didn't miss once in the entire thing.
A fun fact about Paul Verhoeven here: no, Orion Pictures couldn't get an American director to make this movie. They pitched this to anybody that they could get a hold of, and none of them would take it. But Paul Verhoeven read like the first 20 pages, and he said no. But his wife was the one that read all the way through, and she's like, "No, you need to go back and like finish reading this thing." She's the reason why he made this movie, and I'm glad that he did because without him, we wouldn't have the film that we do. So it's a very interesting story, but it's worth looking into. Right?
Yeah, and Tex just gave you my first piece of trivia I had for later on the show.
Hey, I do not apologize for doing homework and research. You're welcome.
Yeah, I never get mad when you guys come knowledgeable. That's okay by me. But Paul Verhoeven is an absolute. He's a treasure. I am kind of interested in what this new project's going to be. But let's talk about the cast. I mean, obviously Peter Weller is fantastic, but this cast is kind of loaded with a couple of good. I mean, Nancy Allen, who was already kind of a big star. Obviously we could talk about Kurtwood Smith. I mean, he runs off the movie for me. I'll go to you, Tex. I mean, what did you think of the cast and who really jumped out for you?
Oh, this is Kurtwood Smith's movie. I mean, he's not even RoboCop, but and I've said this before, but I love a good, unapologetic bad guy. And Kurtwood Smith is just an asshole in this movie. He was great. But Peter Weller, that face, and obviously you only get the lower half of it once he's, RoboCop, but that's the reason why he got cast. I mean, they were looking somebody with like a Schwarzenegger type jawline, something that's identifiable because you're only going to see the bottom half of it. But it was so funny when Peter Weller was on the set of this film, when he was not in the mask, he demanded to be referred to as Murphy. And in the mask, everybody had to call him RoboCop. So he was the Jared Leto of his day before Leto ever became what he did. And it's just, he's so known for this movie and that voice. And, of course, he'd go on later to do that voice for the Dark Knight Returns version of Batman in the animated film. And it just, there's so many cool – John Landis from American Werewolf in London is even in this movie in the TV commercial for the 6000 SUX. They've got so many cool people in this movie. It's just, they are chock full here of just 80s goodness. It's a lot of fun. I dig it.
Yeah, Jeremy, how about you? I mean, what did you think of the cast, and which one of these amazing talented actors stood out for you the most?
I mean, you gotta agree. It's always a win when you got Red Foreman in your movie or your show, whatever you got going on. So you can't, like Tex said, man, like you can tell he was just having a fucking blast, just being an asshole to everybody and everything. Like, and it works because like you got to have somebody who it's like makes you feel a little uncomfortable because he's just kind of slightly unhinged. You have no idea what he's, like that. He could be standing there smirking at you, and then he pulls out a tricked out fucking 50 cal out of his car. You know what I mean? You could blow your head off the next second, but that's what makes it kind of fun because you're trying to go up against something like RoboCop, who's kind of an indestructible machine of law enforcement. So it's a cool dynamic to have the two of these guys button heads throughout this movie. Yeah, I can't say much more past that because honestly, the two of these guys going at it is just a fucking fun time to watch. Also, I want one of those I want one of those guns, damn it. Like he said, I like
it.
I forget. I don't know if I put it in my notes or not, but I think it was basically just like a tricked out 50 cal or something like that.
It looks just like a Barrett with like a goofy little sight on it and shit. So I'm like, it's whatever. And you got those Call of Duty explosive rounds on it. Like, what the hell was that?
Could you imagine the sheath that you would have to make to carry that thing around, though? Like, that's going to be the most uncomfortable thing to wear. You just put a strap on it. You just carry it on the back.
Strap that guy had,
Right.
Those guns away, my God.
This movie, I mean, look, Peter Weller, for one, was already pretty popular. I mean, he had already done like The Adventures of Buckaroo Banzai and some other stuff. But I mean, talk about this being the one role that makes you a big time star. I mean, he could have done it much better. But I mean, honestly, as good as Peter Weller is, and as much as you kind of root for him, especially after he goes through everything he goes through, like getting basically piecemealed by about 500 rounds of ammunition. The people who really run off with this are one is Kurtwood Smith. I mean, he is such a good bad guy. I mean, Red Foreman, great. He's been great in a lot of the things, but I mean, he is just so maniacally evil. I've got an interesting piece of trivia about him and just kind of the look that they were going for with this character later on. But he is so maniacally evil. But another one that kind of runs away with this one for me is Ronny Cox. I mean, you were so used to seeing him play the good guy. He plays Andrew Bogomil in the Beverly Hills Cop movies. He's always kind of a good guy. And then in back-to-back Paul Verhoeven movies, in RoboCop and Total Recall, he plays the bad guy. And he is such a mean-spirited, hateful motherfucker in both those movies. It's really, really impressive. I mean, you've got to be kind of...
Do you know which other film he's the bad guy in? There's a Halloween connection here.
Halloween, now that you mention it, maybe?
No, Halloween 3. He not only is he the leader of the OCP in this film, but he's also the leader of the Silver Shamrock Corporation in Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. I've never seen it till I rewatched it for this review, and for some reason it caught my eye because I had just watched Season of the Witch the other day. I'm like, oh my God, is that the same guy? And I start digging, and sure enough, not only is this dude making the mask that makes snakes and bugs come out of your eyes, but he's making her, killer robots. So he's just a very nasty person. So,
well, he was also one of the serial killers that Dexter has to go up against in Dexter. Like he had a 3 or 4 episodes.
I didn't know he was in Dexter. That's cool.
Yeah, he was a serial killer that hadn't been active for a while, and then for some reason kills again, and Dexter comes across him, and then that's the whole thing. So I mean, so he's been a killer on Dexter as well. But yeah, the guy, I mean, he was so good in this movie. I mean, excuse me, this movie really is kind of partially about the villains and how much you hate them and how much you root for Murphy and how much you want these guys to die. So it seems like every other scene, you're kind of like, you're switching emotional allegiances from one character to the next, as from scene to scene. And it really does keep you on your toes kind of mentally with that. But yeah, I mean, the cast is really good. I mean, Nancy Allen, good. The one thing I don't really get, and maybe this plays a little bit more into the plot than does the cast, but I'll say it anyway, is like, Murphy gets transferred there. He basically has been working with Nancy Allen's character for all of 15 minutes. And then when he dies, she's like suddenly attached to him. And like when she sees him, she's like, oh my God, I think that might be Murphy. I was like, come on, really? You had worked like one shift together. Now, at least that's what I got watching the movie. Now, maybe there was actually a longer period of time that went on and I just didn't notice it, or they don't really explain it very well in the film. But I feel like that was his first day. And like by
first day,
and by lunchtime he had been blown in half, and that was it. So I don't understand why she felt so attached to him, but I mean, whatever. It works for the movie. You know what I mean?
It seems like she noticed him.
She was like surprised that he was even alive again. Yeah.
Well, it seems like she notices him from when he spins the gun. Like that's the one thing that kind of kicks it off. Like otherwise, there's nothing because like I mean, you're getting this like this is what you're going to see. You're not going to recognize that unless they got like a mole or a beard or something. So it had to be that the way he spun that pistol or whatever. It had to be.
Yeah, but still, I mean, she worked with him for one day. It's like
but I mean, like if you saw somebody get
that's curious, then walked away.
You saw somebody get blown apart like that, and then I don't know how much they knew about that whole RoboCop program they had going on, but then all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, I just saw this guy yesterday in a pool of his own blood and body parts, and here he is walking around with half his body left. But what? I don't know.
But yeah, the cast was fantastic. I can't knock any of these guys, especially Miguel Ferrer, who I think sadly passed away just a few years ago. I think the last thing he did was he was on one of the NCIS spinoffs, like NCIS LA or something like that. I've liked him in a lot of movies as well. But yeah, a really killer cast. Villains done great can really make a movie. And you've got two villains here that are fantastic, well written, very, very well acted, and Kurtwood Smith, I swear to God, if I can get a whole movie, like if you want to make Suicide Squad, make the bad guys the heroes, I want a whole like prequel of Kurtwood Smith, make it like the rise of Clarence Bonniger, make it like him coming up in the cocaine underworld in a
I would be perfectly okay.
Near future Detroit. That'd be fun.
Yeah.
I would be perfectly okay with an older version of Lex Luthor played by Kurtwood Smith. I'm down with that. You're not going. I mean, I know he's up there in age, but if you want to put him in the Suicide Squad DC world, that I don't see a better role than Lex Luthor. You know what I mean? So do this right.
I think it might be a little old for that now. Like in the 80s when this movie came out, I think it might have worked. But now Kurtwood Smith's like what? He's like 70 something years old now. Got to be his late 70s.
Oh, he just did that 90s show, and I mean, But I mean. Look at the DA.
He's only catching yells at the kids. An 80-year-old guy can do that.
Right, but it's Lex Luthor. He's not going to be doing. I mean, it could work. I don't know. It would. I think personality-wise, he could really fit in that role. I think that'd be kind of cool. I dig it.
But let's talk about the plot real quick. Yeah, kind of an interesting plot. I mean, again, a bit satirical about the corporate greed, the industrialism, it's kind of interesting because one of the things that RoboCop as a character struggles with, that RoboCop / Alex Murphy struggles with, is the loss of his own humanity. It seems like everybody has lost some of the more important pieces of humanity, with the exception of like maybe Lewis and a couple other people. That's kind of a running theme for this whole thing. So Cop getting revenge on the people that gunned him down, again, nothing new. I mean, we've seen that in a million westerns, let alone a bunch of other cop movies or action movies, period. But I mean, I'll go to you first, Tex. I mean, did the plot work out well for you? I mean, was it a lot deeper than I think a lot of people gave it credit for initially?
Oh, the plot works perfectly. This is a satire-filled Jesus with guns storyline. I mean, think about it. He's the sacrificial lamb that gets torn apart, then he's put back together, and he goes and saves humanity. This works. This is a modern retelling of the Jesus story that works. It's awesome. Of course, you said it in Detroit, the second highest crime rate. Literally. I mean, it's funny how I don't know if psychic or future telling is the right way to put this, but they kind of foresaw what Detroit was going to become. I mean, a crime-ridden. I mean, they killed the auto industry and they went bankrupt. And yes, I know Detroit's on the rise, whatever. But for the most part, it's still Detroit. I mean, it nothing against it, but it has a reputation for a reason. And for them to set this film there was perfect. And, when you look satire-wise, how the news reporters, they're even like, the news reporters are almost like they're just there for entertainment. They're not even there to, teach you something. The plot, it's just, it all works here. It's satire on every level, from the Reagan-like leaders of the 80s, the politicians, the corporate greed. I think this came out. Did Wall Street come out in '87 as well? I think that's when it came out, right?
I think Wall Street came out about the same time.
Very close, yeah, I think.
So, like, I mean, it kind of, the whole greed is good thing very much plays into this. But this film works on every level. And plot wise, I mean, like I said, it's Jesus with a pistol. How can you not love it? I mean, I'm here. Give me another one, please. Just don't make it RoboCop 3 because that was garbage. Make it good this time.
RoboCop 3 was not good.
Hey, neither was Terminator 3, so I mean, they didn't really work.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, Jeremy, how about you? I mean, did the plot work out well for you? Is there some existential questions that still ring true today, do you think?
Yeah, because, like, that's what I was saying. Like, somebody, I mean, I guess I didn't live through that time period, so I'm like, I don't have the experience of being through it and looking at it now and being like, oh, shit, that's kind of funny. But like I said, being removed from it, seeing something from that time, and I can still look at it and be like, oh, shit, well, that was on the nose, wasn't it? That's why They Live that works. Like, that's why this movie holds up, because you can still look at it and think, damn, it never changes these same kind of story beats. And like Tex was saying, this is like a cautionary tale, like, of a dystopian possible, near future, especially in that time. You're thinking, with all this corporate greed, with all these people who just live in the excess, people who point big lasers at, San Francisco and kill a whole bunch of people, but, shit like that. But I mean, at its core, yeah, pretty simple revenge plot of getting back at the guys that, basically turned you into a fucking meat salad. That's always fun to watch. I lost what I was going to say. But I mean, just for that, and even with the newscasters, it's like, yeah, they can just tell you about a plane crash and just be like, all right, well, anyway, here's the weather and here's sports.
Yeah.
Well,
so that's kind of scary, to be honest. I don't know. There's professional demeanor, and then there's just like, oh yeah, so a bunch of children died in a river today, and it's gonna be 82 this weekend. How's it gonna look? Is it gonna a chance for rain? I don't know. But
yeah,
it never ends.
Yeah, I was watching this, and I was kind of thinking all the news about AI that has been around the last couple of years now, and with AI now becoming more than just something they joke about in movies, they say exists. Now it's actually becoming a real thing. I was kind of watching this movie and thinking to myself, and that's kind of what RoboCop is. He's kind of like a super sentient AI that's like, the brain still works, but now it works with all these supercomputers and processors and shit. So you basically fast forwarded what AI could potentially be. And I was thinking about some of the crazy kind of allegories, like the questions that it asked that we still kind of struggle with today about the role of technology in our lives. Because remember, it was in the news just 6 months ago or so about like San Francisco, where somebody's sending the little robot dogs that they were developing over at like MIT to like patrol the streets and stuff like that, because cops are quitting, or it's too dangerous out there to actually put boots on the ground and it's stuff like that. And I'm like, this is the movie where we see where that comes from. We kind of see what that's going to look like if we ever actually do it. So while it may not be technologically advanced to take Murphy's brain, spine, and one of his lungs and put it into a robot, that we're still kind of headed in that direction. And I was like, this is kind of the perfect picture as to what it looks like if we go that route. What were you about to say, Jeremy?
No, I said I do remember what I was going to say, but also there, I'm like, yeah, there was a funny beat though when the I don't know if he's the police chief or he was the lieutenant, whatever. He's like, we're cops. Cops don't strike. I'm like, yikes. Even in Detroit, man, I don't know. Like, damn, well that one hurts. Oh shit. No, I was gonna say about him still like retaining. I was thinking of like the movie iRobot, where it's like you have these AIs and these, they're just programmed, like they had the 3 rules programmed into him, and he has his prime directives. But it's like there's still something there that lingers. There's still like a human connection that's in it, and that's kind of the crazy part. That's like, even with them trying to get rid of his memory, trying to just make him this blank slate, it's like, no, it's still there. It still kind of lingers. And then now you got to struggle with that, because now you're like, oh, I don't know who I am or what's happened, why am I this way? You start thinking about it, you know, just it gets the fucking questions going.
Yeah, I thought it was interesting. Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead, Frank.
No, you go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say quickly, another and very less iconic, but well, depending on how you look at it, Swamp Thing from the world of DC. You know, Alec Holland, the scientist that gets blown up and he lands in the swamp, and then the swamp adopts him. There's pieces of him within the Swamp Thing, but he's not really alive, but he's in there. So these two characters kind of fit and work together really well. I mean, that's one thing that did come to mind whenever I was watching. It's like, how did I never think of Swamp Thing when I watched this? But it's like Swamp Thing with, you know, machinery on him and guns, basically. But I mean, they're very similar characters. You know what I mean?
Now I'm thinking about Tusk. He might be a walrus, but he's in there. He's in there, damn it.
Right. Well, that's what I'm saying. You know,
that one tear at the very end, you know, he's still in there.
He's in there a little bit.
With Murphy, he's, you know, obviously we had 3 films, a TV series, and a reboot, but just going from this movie, you actually have to wonder how much of, yes, we know what physically of Murphy is in this body, but how much of it is actually alive, and how much of it has the AI took upon it, thinks it's alive. That's why the Swamp Thing really kind of keyed off in my mind, because is this just AI reliving through his memories, or is it really there? You know what I mean? So there's, like Frank was saying, there's some deeper stuff here than just robot guy shoots bad guys. There's more to it than that. You know what I
mean? Yeah. Like he still has organics. It's like, yeah, there's still something.
Right.
Yeah, and it does ask the question that I think we all struggle with more and more every day. It's like, what is the role of technology in our everyday lives? Is it going to, I mean, because, you know, if you'd have gone back to 1987 and been like, you know, if you go back forward to 2023, we got a couple of surprises for you. One of them is that we're going to all have this handheld device that we're hardly going to take our eyes off of. And they're going to be like, dude, you're crazy. That's some sci-fi shit. They're never actually going to make that. That's hundreds of years down the line. And then here we are 30-some years later, we all have iPhones. So,
yeah, well, you know what? Yeah. You don't get flying cars with time travel either. So
yeah, none of that shit happens. But you can play Angry Birds on your phone for hours at a time.
Goddamn right.
But yeah, I mean, so it does kind of. I don't know if he meant to do it or not, but it does really ask that question of, you know, the role that technology plays in our lives and our evolution as a species. Even, I mean, because I feel like something like this is probably on the horizon now. I never would have thought something like this when I was 11 years old watching this movie in theaters. But it's like now as I sit here, I'm like, I mean, just the technology that gets to replace somebody's limb after it's been lost in an accident or something like that.
Actually, I was going to say the guy that's doing that little healthcare, whatever commercial, he's got like that like mechanical heart, basically. I was like, isn't that like a thing now? Right. I was like, holy shit, isn't that real now? Like,
I thought that was hilarious because he's like, try our new sports model. Like,
right.
Like, so if you're an NFL linebacker, you want to get that expensive model, but if you're just some plumber, you want to get like the cheaper version. I mean, yeah.
Hey.
It's not even just that, but think about to the whole George Floyd stuff that happened a couple of years ago, and all the, you know, shut down the police, and people started talking about privatizing police and everything else. All of what this is what happens. Right, this is what I'm saying. Do we really want to give private corporations the power of law over us? Like, because obviously this is a extreme example of what could happen. But, you know, I mean, it's just there's so many layers to this. Like, this is why RoboCop has lasted so long. It's a grindhouse, gory, X-rated, violent film where a rapist gets shot in the dick. But then it asks you deeper questions on AI.
Your move, creep. That was awesome.
There's so many. It just, you know, it takes you from here to here and goes back and forth. There's so much this movie does. And this is why RoboCop has lasted as long as he has. Because it's just all there, man. It's a great movie. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it asks a lot of really interesting questions that are still interesting today. I mean, like I said, who'd have thought that the technology? I mean, because if you watch the movie, some of the technology looks really rudimentary compared to what we have today, but some of it is still very outlandish and almost pure science fiction. But I mean, look, Elon Musk is working on this Neuralink thing. That
True.
That guy right there, RoboCop. That's what you can get from Neuralink. So it's like that's how close we are to potentially getting this, and it's
scary though.
Yeah, it's something to think about. That that just over the course of 30-something years, we've gone from this could never happen to this is now real. I don't want to be gross about it, but look at the sex dolls they're making. Have you seen some like the YouTube videos people talking about these?
Yeah.
It's like there are people out there that are getting like they think they're in love with these dolls that take on this human. I don't think they're like great AI or anything. I mean, they're definitely some NPC kind of shit going on, but I mean, it is engrossing enough to where a human being can get wrapped up into that existence. Yeah. And it's terrifying to think that it could get to this point one day where you would have some guy walking around in full armor with a gun on his hip or in his thigh, as it were, if one wire gets crossed or if some water gets into some circuit somewhere, that who knows what really happens. So yeah, there's a lot of interesting questions that I think still linger in today's world, especially with the way that we're so techno dependent on everything. But
I also want one of those. I want one of those Auto 9s, damn it.
Oh yeah,
that's one of the coolest damn like sci-fi movie guns ever. I love that thing.
Oh yeah,
cool as hell.
That's a badass gun.
Hell
yeah. But let's talk about the special effects. We were talking a little bit before we went live. You guys are a bit more forgiving on the special effects of this movie than I am, and I'm usually the one that's really ultra forgiving for the 80s. But I struggled with this one as I was watching it for the first time in a while last night. I'll go to you first, Jeremy. Do the special effects hold up even for an era like the mid-late 80s where things had not yet quite made the strides into the digital realm?
Well, I see, because I like that it seems like most of this was actually pretty much practical. I mean, you had, little squibs going off, or like a gunfire going off of RoboCop's chest. You got shit going in the car there. The explosions, I'm pretty sure, were real. A lot of the, it seemed, I'd say probably about 90% practical, which I can appreciate. I mean, even some of the over-the-top gore and violence. I mean, like, yeah, obviously, it's ridiculous when someone shoots you with a shotgun and your whole fucking arm comes off. I'm like, yeah, okay. But, I mean, damn, but when this movie goes for it, it went for it. The only thing that really kind of, I mean, it's like, yeah, I get it. It's late 80s, but it's still considered a practical effect. But honestly, the ED 209, it's like, I know it's stop motion. I know it looks a little goofy, but it's okay that it's goofy because, I mean, it is a lumbering, machine. So, I mean, I don't really know what else kind of looks like. You can obviously look at it and say, oh, that's dated. Like, but, doing the best of what they had. I've seen some pretty bad, that same effect, but still, not quite there. Even when Murphy takes his helmet off finally, I mean, like, even that, I'm like, the makeup job on that was incredible. I can see you back there.
I'd buy that for $1.
Oh, thanks. Look at that. Thanks.
You ever paid, Rachel?
Oh, I can't mute Frank. Fuck. Anyway. Thank you. Damn it. I knew he had that in his pocket. God.
I had it.
He had to have.
We're prepared on this show, people. You're welcome. We do, we're prepared.
Yeah. But anyway, like, even like I said, the way it still looks pretty damn cool when he takes the helmet off and you see like half, like his face is almost kind of like stretched up to like the back half of his head, which is just robotic. And I'm like, I'm like, I know it's like a fake. I mean, that's his whole head's in there. And then they had to put his face through some sort of prosthetic and smooth it out. But I'm like, look, I work in a haunt. I do stuff like that. I'm like, I don't think I could blend that fucking well. I mean, that's still pretty good. I mean, and it's kind of, it gave me, I was thinking of Darth Vader when we were talking about this. I'm like, you got somebody who's probably half cyborg, half human. And it's like, how much of that's still even there? Which is a big question of Star Wars. But I mean, he's not someone who had his mind wiped. He's not like
more machine than man now.
Yeah. No, that's fine. So, but the same thing, it's like Vader still struggles with that same thing. When he took his helmet off, I had that same kind of like feeling at like the end of Return of the Jedi, like when Vader finally takes his helmet off and like you see the guy underneath, and it's like, damn, dude. It's like, what's even really left of like an actual person? But You know what? I don't know. You can just turn your mind off, and I know Tex said it. Like, I'm not even gonna fucking try to count how many people died in this movie because I was just like engrossed in like, oh my god, this movie's so cool.
Nope.
A lot.
Yeah, I'll just write a lot. There's my bid.
All of them died.
They all died.
died.
Yeah,
Even
everyone
Murphy.
died.
What?
Even Murphy.
Yeah, I was gonna say
What was the
he's gonna
population?
do some dumb shit. I'm like, well, Murphy died. I'm like, but did he? Because he came back. I don't know. He did die.
He's Jesus. That's what I'm saying. He's Jesus. He came. Jesus with guns. That's the sequel.
Watch that
RoboCop.
movie.
Jesus with guns. That's the tagline.
We can just make
They were
Robo Jesus.
RoboCop.
Make a Robo Jesus.
Robo Jesus. Oh my God. I'm so directing Robo Jesus. I'm making that movie.
Oh.
Tex, how about you? I mean, you're one of the special effects horror aficionados, the blood and guts kind of guy. Did the special effects really hold up for you the way they did for Jeremy?
1987 it was a very interesting year for the special effects. It was the same year we got Evil Dead 2, which is another film that I treasure. I absolutely adore that movie. And the special effects, they're dated, they're aged, but without them being so kind of cheesy, the film wouldn't be as good. I'm talking about RoboCop here. Like one of the things that I did look up, apparently when they were making this film, all of the squibs were just condoms full of fake blood. Basically, they went to every place within Dallas and bought all of the condoms. Like everybody who talks about this was one of the things that they did. So in the summer of 1987, or whenever they made this movie, if you were trying to get laid, hope your pullout game is good. You wouldn't find no rubbers. But I mean,
so we had baby boomers and we got RoboCoppers.
Right. Which makes a lot of sense because I was born in '87, so maybe I was a RoboCop baby. I don't know, but
because I'm like, I think I missed that.
It is
I was born in 92.
I'm not from Dallas. I'm not from Dallas, but who knows? They could have shipped him in. Who for all I know? But
actually, wait,
the special
one of them come out in the year '93, so maybe I did.
87, 90, and 93, right? Is that when the three films came out?
The sequel
I think so.
came out in '93. The other ones I don't care about.
Right. But
that's
the
possible.
Special effects here is the special effects. They're cheesy. They're not great, but they work for what it is. It's like Jeremy said earlier. This is a dystopian film of every bit of this is satire. It's not just cop gets shot and goes back as robot. Even the effects themselves, which is one thing that the director had said in interviews, was when the MPAA basically raped this movie because the violence was so over the top. Even the violence was poking fun at American gore and violence in action movies. So even the violence itself was a satire of, here's our good guy Cop Murphy. He just got shot with all of the bullets that we could ever find in possibly Detroit. And, we put him back together. It was, it works for what it is. And if it wasn't that way, I don't think it would be remembered or nearly as good. You know what I mean? So.
Yeah, for me, and usually, you guys know me, I'm usually pretty forgiving when it comes to these 80s and early 90s things where we were in that process of making some advancements in CGI and some of the special effects stuff. The matte paintings were horrible. God, it was just so bad. And like I said, I'm usually pretty forgiving when it comes to this stuff, but they were noticeably bad. And it's been a few years since I watched this movie before yesterday, but as I was watching, I'm like, it looks like my little girl colored that. They just put it up behind the building so it looked taller. It just didn't look good at all. But here's what I will say, and I'm softening my stance a little bit as I hear you guys talk. For one, the practical effects, the explosions and stuff were really, really good. They were done very well. But the one detail that I really liked, and I'm sure you guys probably noticed it as well, later on in the movie, as he's taking his helmet off for the first time, right here you see the bullet wound, like it was kind of healed over.
Oh, yeah.
I looked at that and I was
still
like,
lodged in his head, yeah.
And I know I had noticed that like a million times before, but I kind of looked at it this time. I was like, that's a really cool detail. Like that kind of detail work is important when you're trying to make your visual stuff look good. But like I said, the matte painting was bad. The set decorations and stuff. I mean, you're just going for a post-apocalyptic kind of thing, really. Just a lot of litter on the ground and kind of mostly empty streets and a couple of hooligans acting like assholes.
When Lewis was chasing Kurtwood Smith's character, I'm like, I had some like Mad Max vibes. I'm like, the way the cars were zipping around the city and shit. Yeah. I'm like, yeah, this is like got a Mad Max feel to it. But,
a little bit, yeah. I think even one of the reviews that I read for it even mentioned that a comparison to kind of Mad Max, only in a more modern urban setting as opposed.
Yeah, that's like actual apocalyptic cops with a shortage of gas and people are strapping people to the front of fucking cars and shit. Yeah, that's a little further into the future, but yeah, kind of gave me that vibe, which was, I mean, I'm not gonna say no to that. That's a good movie. Although, Road Warrior is still top tier. Sequel's still better.
Oh yeah,
Road Warrior can't be beat, man. I'm telling you.
But we talked a little bit about the remake that came out 2014 or something like that with 14. Joel Kinnaman. But yeah, I don't know. I'll go to you first, Jeremy. I mean, you've seen the remake, right?
No.
You said you haven't, so I'll go to Tex with this one. I'm not surprised that you haven't. That movie came and went really quickly. I don't even think I went and saw it in theaters. I think I ended up not going, and I was like, oh, I'll go in a couple weeks, and a couple weeks later it was already gone. So I ended up seeing it on streaming way after the fact.
Tex, I think I was just kind of like, oh, cool, there it went. I'm like,
yeah, whatever. That's kind of what a lot of people thought. I mean, Tex, I think you said you'd seen it. What did you think of the remake? Did it do the original any justice at all?
Convince me to watch it.
The remake
I'll convince you. 2 words. Michael Keaton's in it.
There you go. No, the remake is good. It's not. It's not the original. It's nowhere near as. It's almost, when you're watching the remake, take the original out of your mind, because if you're watching by comparison, you're not gonna like it as well. But it's a solid action film that takes the IP of RoboCop and New Detroit and everything else, and it works. It's a fun film. Stay to the end, because there is a stinger for a very key element of what RoboCop is. That's right next to my head. There we go. Right next to me right now. But obviously his look is different in the remake. But that there is callbacks. But yeah, the remake is worth watching. Like I said, if you haven't seen it, go watch it at least once. Okay. It's pretty solid. I like it.
Yeah, I didn't think it was bad. I mean, I thought it was decent. Yeah. I like Joel Kinnaman, I really do. And the guy, who was the guy in The Wire, the one that just passed away recently from drug overdose, the black guy. He plays Lewis in this movie. So instead of the female cop, at all, he plays Lewis. He was actually very good at it as well. Michael Keaton is in it. He's the bad guy in this, which is really fun. He plays the corporate guy who is kind of like a cross between a bit of an Elon Musk and a Bill Gates. He has his ideas of what he wants to do, and he's super smart. But he makes for a pretty good bad guy, because as much as I love Michael Keaton, he's a good guy. He has that kind of smiley face and stuff like that. All he has to do, I've said a bunch of times, I love people that act with their eyes. He moves one muscle in his eyebrow, and he's a villain.
Yeah, I could see it. Yeah.
And this, especially the rooftop scene at the third act, the end of the movie, the climactic scene, so good. But as much as I think the movie's pretty good, it misses the magic of the original. The problem with remakes is that sometimes you can have a really great concept for a remake. You can get some great actors together, some great writers. You can put it all together, and you can look at it and be like, this is good. This is going to hold up against the original. But you can't organize magic like that. Sometimes it happens despite your best efforts. Sometimes you can try to make a terrible movie and you make a good one. Look at Cocaine Bear. It's like you're trying to make this farce of a movie, but you make something that's actually pretty damn good. It's like, I think that's kind of what happened with RoboCop is, I'm going to take this weird, fantastical, satirical view of what I see happening in the world right now and what I think life could be like in 15 years if we continue down this path. But he ends up making this really kind of awesome movie that is a little bit more thought-provoking than I think a lot of people thought it would be. Maybe even Paul Verhoeven. Maybe he didn't even think it was going to be that thought-provoking. But it ends up being kind of a movie that has a little bit of that you don't see coming.
To be fair, there's no way to recreate the politics and the the corporate view of 80s movies is so, I mean, it's such a key element of those films of that era that even when we try to recreate it, it doesn't come off as well. So when they remade, RoboCop in 2014, you can't really. Yes, you could do a knockoff version of a Reagan-esque, bad guy or whatever, but it's going to come off cheap because it's been done 100,000 times in movies. One thing that I liked about the remake was they didn't really try to do that. They made it fit in the time period that it existed in. And like you said, it didn't do great.
Near future, not like
near future,
but 15 years.
Right.
Close enough to where we're at in that time, but still kind of on down the line a little bit.
I don't know how much money it made. Probably not much because, like you said, it came and went fast. I remember seeing like the action figures come out for the remake of RoboCop, and I was like, "Oh, he's all black. Maybe he gets a paint job or something by the end of the movie. I don't know." So I know a lot of people were very upset with the look of RoboCop, and I think that put a lot of people off. That's why they didn't go see it because you see the toy before you see the movie most times, and I think that's what caused it to not be as successful. But it's still a film worth seeing at least once.
There's definitely a Batman movie that happened too. That's a big oof. Wait, the toys for the movie even came out.
Yeah, it probably wasn't entirely successful. It made $242.6 million on a budget of estimated between 100 and 130 million. So the movie may have broken.
So they just barely cleared,
even, but
they may have broke even then, basically.
But that's still a failure. Damn.
And looking at it, Rotten Tomatoes got an approval rating of 49% based on 221 reviews.
Yikes.
So that's not. Look, I mean, if you're close to 50 these days, I would say that's probably not terrible. I mean, it's not.
Yeah, but
and like I said, I watched it. I thought it was a decent enough movie.
Well, I mean, considering even if you get like a 70% on Rotten Tomatoes, that's considered like good because very few films even get a 70 anymore. So I mean, even almost 50 is not doing bad. You know what I mean? I mean, you have to look at it comparatively, I guess. But it is what it is.
Well, I mean, comparatively, this one has like a 94 or some shit. So I mean,
yeah.
So kind of get blown out of the water when you compare 94 to 49. So
right.
I don't know.
But there is this whisper out there. Actually, it's not even really a whisper. I mean, it's 100% supposedly in the works. There's going to be a direct sequel to RoboCop coming out that is apparently going to be a direct sequel to the first one, and is going to ignore the rest of the stuff. I think that kind of sucks because I think RoboCop 2 is actually pretty good.
I know 2 is still good.
I liked it. Yeah. 2 is a good film. I liked it.
RoboCop 2 is pretty solid. But let's see.
There's a couple of movies like that. That's like Halloween 2 is still good. Texas Chainsaw 2 is still good. But hey, fuck all that. Let's just make a direct sequel.
Yeah. So
that's the Halloween 2018 effect. Let's just remake something from 50 years ago and erase the entire history of what it came before. Thanks, Jamie Lee Curtis and Blumhouse.
And for the record, Paul Verhoeven has said he should be dead before a reboot was attempted, and Alan believes iconic films should not be remade. RoboCop Returns, a direct sequel to RoboCop that ignores the series' other films, is in development. The film is set to be directed by Abe Forsyth. Let's see, who is rewriting a script written by Neumeier and Miner, the original writers of this film, and Justin Rhodes. So, I mean, creatively, I'm a little more confident, but I mean, we'll see. I mean, we're talking. There's not even like a page of this movie yet, so who the hell knows if it's actually gonna get made?
It just feels awkward too when you do shit like this because it's like, yeah, great. Like RoboCop's gonna come back. I'm like, okay, but are you doing a direct sequel? As in, this is a little while down the line from the movie we just saw because it was set in a somewhat near future from 1987, or are you doing like, hey, now it is 2023, and I'm like, see, now I'm already like out of the movie because I'm just like, it just feels like it's just too much. You're just gonna have him awkwardly clunk out there and start doing some shit. And I'm like, I don't really care now. Like, I don't know. It feels like it's just too long.
Well,
too long of a time. Like When you do something like Batman Returns, like a few years later, that makes sense because that's still one of the best Batman movies ever made. But
let's not forget what's coming in. Let's not forget what's coming in October. We're getting a 50-year sequel to The Exorcist. Aren't you excited? Yay! It's
you're like, what's coming. You know what's coming in October? I'm like, yeah, Five Nights at Freddy's. Leave me alone. I want original stuff.
Yeah, aren't you excited to see Reagan's mom from the first movie, who did nothing in the first movie, but somehow she's a religious expert now? 50 years later, aren't you excited? It's like, I mean, come on. I'll watch a RoboCop prequel, but it's not like they're going to get Peter Weller back. The last time I saw him on TV, he did not look good. So he's not going to be reprising a role. He'll probably be dead, in this timeline. So it's going to be, we're going to, crime rose in new Detroit. So we're going to dust off the RoboCop program, and we can make him better this time. Probably something along those lines is what some creative type in Hollywood came up with and got paid too much money for it.
But what I think, though, is, and I was talking about earlier, the technology of today that we're dealing with AI and things like that. How do you set it in the modern day? Don't set it 15 years from now like this movie was set 15 years or so in the future from 1987. Set it in modern times, and now we have AI. Now we have drones. Now we have all kinds of shit. And see how that meshes with the Alex Murphy that we've had for 30-something years on the streets of Detroit, fucking putting it down and protecting the streets. I mean, does this stuff go sideways? And RoboCop is the only one that's analog that can kind of deal with it all. You know what I mean? So there's stuff you can do, and there's a lot of other, like I said, those modern questions we ask about the role of technology in our lives. You can take a very satirical look at that and make that kind of one of the driving things behind the story. I think there's an opportunity there.
Well, I'll be honest with you, I'm worried because obviously the political times that we live in, like I said, go back to the whole George Floyd stuff where they wanted to get rid of police. Just, we don't need them anymore. I can't help but worry that a lot of that kind of outlook is going to be involved in the film. Every film has to have some sort of politically correct agenda in it these days. That's probably something that's going to be included on some level and probably ruin the film. The beauty of what this movie does, it has political tones in it, but they don't beat you over the head like they used to not do in films. It's there if you want to see it, but if you just want to enjoy a robot man killing bad guys, you can watch it. I'm worried that they're going to overdo the political and not make it satire, but more preachy that they do in modern cinema. They
called attention to it in this movie, but they kind of made fun of it. Like, oh yeah, this laser beam came down and killed two presidents that just happened to retire. Like, that sucks. Damn. Like you actually kind of laugh, but in a way that's like, oh, that's dumb. All right.
You know what's funny? It's like they were actually talking about that. These terrible fires that just rolled through Hawaii. They're actually talking about. They're actually one of the theories out there is that you guys remember several months ago they had those green lasers that appeared over Hawaii that couldn't be explained, and it turns out it was something the Chinese were doing. And so a lot of people were wondering if that isn't like they use those lasers to start that fire as kind of a test run to see if they want to take a shot at the U.S. at the mainland. So,
well, they took a shot at Canada apparently, if that's the case, and they fucking
It was clearly those Chinese balloons with help from the aliens. This is clearly what happened here, people. Haven't you been watching the news? It's all good. I mean, it's right there. How do you not see it?
I as soon as going back on that point though, I see it now with what Tex just said. I'm like, damn well that's going to be the opening of the movie. It's going to try to make fun of it. It's going to be they actually defunded the police and got rid of them, and then like, fuck, the consequences of our actions. How did we not see this happen? And then
cops are racist. We can't have them. We need robots, and then the robots are going to go bad. Then they're going to say, "Oh well, didn't we have a RoboCop 45 years ago that we could
let's get him."
It's going to be some blue-haired virtue signaling guy be like, he's like almost dead because one of these bad cops, almost kills him, right? He becomes now the hero of the story, and he gets to a virtue signal, and he's the hero of the movie. So, this is probably what it's going to be if it ever gets made.
Because
like I said, I'm worried.
The beauty of this movie is that it's like, well, he's kind of the first person this happened to, the first prototype that they're like, oh, hey, we can try this this thing we got going on this guy who, I guess, kind of involuntarily volunteered because he got blown to fucking bits. But I'm like,
even JSP.
What?
JSP here in the comments, he even picks up on something that I even wrote down earlier. This is even Paul Verhoeven. He even referred to this film as left-wing fascism. Like even back then, this movie was known as that. So it has the political skew to it, but it doesn't beat you over the head. It doesn't preach to you. It lays it out there, and if you pick it up, fine. But if you, like I said, if you just want to see Robot Man shoot people in the balls, we got that for you too. So, it serves all nice.
No, I was gonna say it's because he's like the only one that exists, so it's kind of cool. That's like, you have this one robot cop who can kind of do it all. You know what I mean? But I'm like, if you're having this big time jump now, I'm like, well, now it would kind of, unless that was how I kind of answered my own question in my head when Tex said that. I was like, oh, it's gonna be they got rid of the police and they kind of let the RoboCop thing go by the wayside, and they're like, oh, well, we still have the one. We still have this. Because I'm like, you have to explain, this probably happened to some other people. If this is the same damn new Detroit that we're talking about, there's probably plenty of other cops that got wounded. Like, I mean, he even said to Lewis, he's like, oh, they're going to take care of you. That they can always fix this stuff. I'm like, yeah. So there's other cops that probably got fucked up.
You can't do a story about Detroit police and not have it be liberal. I mean, blue state politics got Detroit where it is. So it's built into the DNA of the story. And I guarantee you, if the sequel does get made, it's going to be even more heavily into it. And I mean, like I said, this film predicted Detroit going bankrupt. They must have knew something before we did. So it's and I mean, Detroit, I mean, it's got a lot going for it. I mean, it's on the revamp. I mean, WWE just had SummerSlam there. There's a lot of good within Detroit, but it will always have that mantra of hellhole. It just is what it is. I'm sorry, but there's no way to get around it.
8 Mile, baby.
Right, there you go. It's known for that. So sequel wise, I can't help but worry that this is going to be a field day for some, anti right wing politics, and they're just going to have a field day with it. And it'll just be featuring RoboCop,
Yeah, but let's get into some trivia now before it starts to get a little too late. So I think we can tear this movie apart for a lot of different ways. But let's get into some trivia. Let's see. The 1982 science fiction film Blade Runner was filming on the Warner Brothers lot behind Neumeier's office, one of the writers, and he unofficially joined the production to learn about filmmaking. His work there gave him the idea for RoboCop. He said, quote, I had this vision of a far distant Blade Runner type world where there was an all mechanical cop coming to a sense of real human intelligence. I love that you're on the set of one film and you get a great idea for another. That's the industry kind of feeding itself, which is really awesome. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
And there's the right before the ball shot. I actually think this is a really cool shot. The shadow of this imposing figure is pretty cool. But I thought that was pretty interesting. I don't know, Tex, what do you think about the weird connection between Blade Runner and RoboCop?
Well, once again, that's another futuristic timeline film that if you wanted to, you could work them into the same universe. Technically, so that means you could connect RoboCop to Blade Runner. There's already a tie from Weyland-Yutani from Alien to Blade Runner. So we can connect all these 80s movies and we won't have to work that hard. There's something here we can do with it. I like where this is going.
Actually, if you want to connect all the 80s movies together, Tex, I think that's called Ready Player One. I think they already did that.
Well, we're not giving Spielberg anymore. Spielberg got enough credit. He doesn't need any more. We're taking this, by God. We're doing this ourselves.
Right, because right before this, I was like, wait a minute, wasn't the Auto 9 in Ready Player One? I was like, I swear it's in there somewhere. I'm like, oh yeah, the main freaking character, his two sidearms were the Auto 9 and then the one from Battlestar Galactica. I'm like, yeah. And then Artemis had like Judge Dredd's pistol, and then she had the pulse rifle from Aliens. I'm like, right, there's so many 80s iconic 80s guns that are in this.
What year did Blade Runner come out? That was 82?
80, I thought it was 80.
82 or 83. 82.
Okay.
Yeah.
82? Okay. Damn, I couldn't remember putting in the work, man. Damn.
That's interesting. That's interesting that the idea came. I hadn't found that piece of trivia. That's interesting to find out, though. That's kind of cool. Where that came from. I dig it.
Let's see. You guys know about 6 to 8 months were spent searching for an actor to portray Alex Murphy or RoboCop. Arnold Schwarzenegger, Michael Ironside, Rutger Hauer, Tom Berenger, Armand Assante, that would have been interesting, Keith Carradine, and James Remar were all considered. But Weller was eventually cast because A, he was cheap, and B, he had a great chin. Obviously very important. Also, it seemed that he was the only one that really wanted the role out of all those actors. Now, for a time, Michael Ironside was actually attached to the role, but he wanted a rewrite to include RoboCop for some reason having a harem. I don't understand why. That doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know.
RoboCop have a harem? A harem of women?
I guess. Yes. I don't know. But Jeremy, what do you think? I mean, do any of those names sound like they could have done a good job as Peter Weller, or even just kind of done a good job on their own?
Well, I think Schwarzenegger did a good enough job as another robot from the 80s. I think you need to chill, dude. Or chill out, dickwad. Sorry.
Actually, that ice pun works because a few years from now he would do Mr. Freeze, and nobody would be happy about it. So,
all right, everyone, chill. But I mean, the only reason they put him in that role is because he was the only fucking person who could wear that whole suit. I mean, my God.
Yeah. Well, you know who do you remember, Jeremy, who they originally wanted to play Mr. Freeze in that movie?
I know it, but because I think about it and laugh because I'm like, yeah, it wouldn't have worked because also again, you're not holding up that suit by yourself.
It was Patrick Stewart.
No.
But they were worried. I think that suit weighed something like 150 pounds or something like that. So
it was something
ridiculous. Hold it up and
I still want
Artie.
Yeah,
I still want Patrick Stewart to play a Batman the Animated Series version of Mr. Freeze. He is perfect for that version of Mr. Freeze. I need to see that before I die. That's perfect casting.
Yeah, let's see. The MPAA objected to a scene of a mutilated Emil being disintegrated by Boddicker's car, which is one of the great visuals in the entire movie. I wish I could have found a good picture of it. But Verhoeven, Davidson, and Orion Pictures refused to remove it because it consistently received the biggest laughs during test screenings. That says a lot about the world. If this guy gets kind of funny. Does this guy get squashed like a bug, like literally against the car?
Well,
and people were laughing.
This was right around the same time where the MPAA had cracked down on the Friday the 13th series as well. That's why those later sequels are so tame. There's no nudity. The violence is neutered at best. So the MPA, they're so fickle. They literally make the rules up as they go. I mean, it makes no sense what gets this, what gets what. We should get rid of the whole thing. I hate all of it. It's ridiculous.
No, I don't say get rid of the Ratings Association. I just say sometimes they're not always. They don't always well define some of their objections. Because there's a history of big name directors and big name personalities going head to head with the MPAA. I mean, Howard Hughes went head to head with the MPAA in a lot of things when he was making movies back.
Do we need them though? I mean, think about it.
They serve a purpose. They're guidance. They're not rules. They're guidance. Now, they have some rules that are fairly clear. I mean, you get one F-bomb in a movie before it gets to be rated R or NC or R, and it can't be in reference to a sex act. So you'll see a lot of guys drop the one F-bomb as like an exclamation and get away with it and still keep it like PG-13 or whatever. Mm-hmm. I mean, they can set some guidelines like that, but for the most part, I mean, maybe parents just don't care as much today as they did back when we were young. But because I've let my kids watch the things that were questionable, but I mean, I was like, I'm right here to help explain some of these movies to them. So maybe, this is okay. But I mean, they serve a purpose. I mean, they give some guidance to parents, which is what they're really meant to do. They're not necessarily meant to hurt the potential earnings of a film, although they can sometimes have that effect. So, I mean, they have a purpose. You can not always like it, but they have a purpose.
Well, I don't think we need them. I think we can simply do it. Okay, this film has strong language, sexy. We can literally do everything that they do now. We don't need the MPAA. To me, that's just another organization that's clogging up the gears here. And I mean, let's be honest. If your kid's watching some horrible video here on YouTube, and then are you really going to worry, oh, how much foul language is in this action film that we're taking them to, when they heard much worse things at home without the MPAA? I feel like it's another organization that's kind of serving itself and nobody else. To be honest with you, I don't think we need them anymore.
I don't know. I think they have a value. As far as whether they're right or wrong, I guess that's always open to interpretation. But when they were marketing this movie, check this shit out. I think this is the perfect picture to put up there for this guy I'm about to mention. Orion promoted the film by having former United States President Richard Nixon shake hands with a RoboCop costumed actor. Nixon was paid $25,000, which he donated to the Boys Club of America.
The fucking irony, though. It's Richard Nixon.
There is some irony to it, yeah. He's exactly the kind of guy that would have been in bed with Dick Jones and all the other assholes with OCP. That makes perfect sense when you think about it. But here's something interesting, Tex. For the attempted rape scene, you can see on your screen right now, writer Edward Neumeier originally had RoboCop shoot past the victim's cheek, hitting and killing the potential rapist. When getting ready to shoot the scene as scripted, Paul Verhoeven noticed that Donna Keegan's legs were spread apart, giving him the idea to have RoboCop shoot between her legs and hit the rapist in the genitals. Fitting, I would say. Neumeier loved the idea, so that ended up being how the scene was shot.
Yeah,
I think that's awesome.
That is besides Murphy getting blown to hell, that is my favorite scene in the entire movie, because it's so fitting. It's like street justice is done. We don't need a trial. He doesn't even really need to go to jail. I mean, he's going to spend the rest of his life without his most important thing working anymore. So we just blew that thing right off. You obviously can't control it, so you don't need it. So RoboCop helped remove it for you. So, I think, like I said, Murphy getting blown to hell in this scene, the best scenes in the movie for me. I dig it. I love it.
Yeah, rapid castration via 9mm.
Hey,
via a 3-round burst.
We might want to consider this for all the bad guys doing that these days at times. Maybe just a little pow, and you won't be doing that no more. You know what I mean? It's all good.
Let's see, real quick, and I'm mad I didn't bring this picture up with the special effects earlier, because I actually think I know this is a shot that Tex really likes, but I'll bring it up now for this one. The trauma team portrayed in the movie trying to save Murphy was a real hospital trauma team. Their dialogue was mostly ad-libbed. What they did was they just put a camera on the gurney and said, here's your situation, say what you would say, do what you would do, and just watch them act as if they would have acted while they were trying to save a patient with severe gunshot wounds. Isn't that pretty crazy?
Nice.
Oh, yeah. Well, they would know better than anybody else. Just let them go do what they do in real life. I mean, what are you going to say? Oh, well, artistically, you need to. No, we're going for realism here. This scene right here is why I say this is a trauma film with a budget. Go watch any trauma movie where there's just grotesque gore. This is what you get right here. I love this scene. It's an amazing. The whole sequence that takes place right here. If you haven't watched it, go watch it, because it's a lot of fun. I love it.
It is actually kind of intense too.
I was saying in reference to Texas, this is Texas Robo Jesus movie. That's your crucifixion scene right there. That's your
Well, whenever
that's what that is.
Whenever I direct Robo Jesus and probably get canceled and shunned from the church for forever, but it's okay. I'll make enough money. I'll be fine. It's going to be cool. This will be my opening flashback with Murphy being just yeah, it's going to be great. It's going to be cool.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about Kurtwood Smith and how great he was. He actually originally auditioned for the role of Dick Jones, and when he first learned he had been cast, he thought that was the role he had gotten. Not until later did he find out that he would be playing Clarence Boddicker. Later still, he discovered the reason. Being Dutch, director Paul Verhoeven had grown up near the Holocaust and thought that when wearing glasses, Smith resembled Heinrich Himmler. Smith apparently agreed with the idea, staging that a bigger, more menacing villain would come across as someone who would merely be outsmarted, while his character's glasses made him look smarter and therefore more of a threat. I actually, years ago, when I was watching this movie in my early 20s, studying the Holocaust as I did in high school, I actually always thought that he had a very SS look about him. Isn't that pretty wild that you can just make him look like an evil person from history and make him that much worse?
Well, if you put a couple skull emblems on that black coat, you got the Death's Head outfit right there. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? So the visuals are already there, and he's I think it's fair to say he's one of the best '80s villains in film. Kurtwood Smith is amazing in this movie. I can see it. I dig it. Oh yeah, 100%.
Yeah, let's see. Real quick, I do want to shout out Really Mysterious. He made a $3 donation. He said, "Greetings, Godfather Frank, my commie brother Tex, Luscious Jeremy." Shout out to the lovely Cora as well as JSP, VJ, and Ghost in the chat. What's up, Really Mysterious? Glad you're kind of back in the swing of the YouTube community a little bit.
Damn, I got Luscious. All right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he's got that one pegged.
Hey, I'm glad to see that his blue state politics hasn't ground him up there yet. So, hey, I'm glad you're alive.
But is he willing to pay more than $1? Is he willing to outbid Rachel? So that's the question.
I mean,
let's see.
She's gonna pay a couple more dollars for that shit. I'm gonna have fucking money raining on my ass. What's gonna happen?
The writers and producers were actually concerned that the cops would be offended by their portrayal in the movie. Let's see. On the contrary, they loved it. They especially enjoyed the scene where RoboCop throws Boddicker through 3 panes of glass windows while concurrently reading Boddicker an abbreviated rendition of his Miranda rights.
That was pretty goddamn funny.
I've actually always kind of liked that scene as well. I think it's pretty funny.
You have the right to have a broken collarbone. Ow, through the wall.
I don't know if you guys noticed, but all the times that he records people were all very specifically timed. He actually, because he actually says anything you say can be used against you before he throws Boddicker again, and that's when he starts recording him. So at that point, he had finished reading him his Miranda rights, so legally anything he said could be used against him. It wasn't like he hadn't been fully Mirandized yet. It was the same thing with Dick Jones. When he starts recording is actually really important. Is a really important place in the conversation and stuff like that. So yeah, that's something that I had read a little bit about when I was reading some of the stuff on the Wikipedia page, is that they specifically did that because they wanted it to be legal if you were to actually, go to court with any of the evidence he gathers, instead of just, shooting guys' dicks off and, throwing out windows and shit. But, again, how creepy is Kurtwood Smith? Kurtwood Smith's wife, Joan Perkle, had a small role as Dick Jones' secretary, Barbara, who Kurtwood flirts with before a meeting.
That's funny. That makes that better. That's even better.
You know what's funny? It's I had saw this little tidbit of information before I'd watched the movie, and I kind of was watching, and I was like, she really does look like an annoyed wife who's just kind of had enough of her husband's shit for the night. You know what I mean?
Keep the gum.
It's like this guy's a murdering, drug pushing psychopath, and she's just rolling her eyes at him like, whatever, asshole, just get out of my face.
I mean, that's a great line. After all that shit, after he basically just kind of comes on her there, she's like, he's expecting you. Go. Right. I'm like, right. She's not having it today.
Right.
Enough of this shit.
You know, and one of the best kills of this movie is so basic and so simple. When RoboCop's spike, which emerges from his knuckles, and gun holster were actually two standalone separate pieces that were never integrated into the costume. The spike cane was controlled by someone who just held up a fake arm towards the camera while they were off camera, and the gun holster was operated off screen since it was a standalone piece. Dude, that though is one of the coolest kills I've seen in movies. When that spike comes out just right through his neck. That's such a basic but awesome kill.
That's personal shit. I mean, that's up close and right in your face. That's some Assassin's Creed shit, man. He just boom, got right in his fucking jugular, let him bleed out. Like, yeah, goddamn.
Yeah, that was some good shit.
Well, I don't know if this is something that you have in your trivia or not, but I did find out a couple pieces. The guy that actually created the RoboCop suit, he created the monster in John Carpenter's The Thing. Like, so this guy, as far as 80s stuff goes, he's got some serious cred. I mean, like, you know, for him to come up with that whole suit design, I always thought the RoboCop suit was like C3PO from Star Wars, but like for men. That's kind of what it looked like. You know what I mean? It was a lot. It just looks so cool to this day that, I mean, people still love it. You know?
It comes with a thigh holster, built in.
Built in. Right. Now, Jeremy, I know you hate it when I do this to you, but I'm going to do it anyway.
27.
What is the body count per IMDb? Now, again, when I do this, it's always in the trivia section of IMDb. And I know Tech said he didn't pay attention. Jeremy said he was just kind of lost in the movie, wasn't counting. But you got to imagine that the body count on this is probably a fairly good amount, because it seemed like from the second act on, anybody who RoboCop came in contact with that was a bad guy was just getting whacked. So, I mean, what do you guys think? Jeremy, I'll start with you. Take a shot. What do you think the body count was?
Yeah, but like your main character died and then came back to life. Does that fucking count?
He has risen on the third day.
No, that's my answer. I don't fucking know. Like I said, rounded off at what did I say? 27? Sure.
I'll go 30. I'll go 30.
I'm not gonna lie. I'm actually surprised with how low the body count is. Just watching the movie and all the chaos that ensues, the lawlessness of Detroit. You know, the bad guys killing people, the cops. You know, RoboCop killing bad guys every 3 minutes. I was really surprised his body count was actually this low. Tex, I'm going to give you the win on this one. The official body count in this movie per IMDb was 34.
Really? Wow.
That's low. I was thinking you were going to tell me it was like 10 or some shit.
No, I was like, he's going to say like 5, and I'm going to call him a liar.
Still going to be right.
That's what I was waiting on.
I really would have thought the body count in this movie, just watching the movie from start to finish, just watching it, not actually counting, I would have thought the body count in this movie was like 50 or more. Because it seems like every other scene he's putting a 3-round burst into somebody. So, I mean, and again, sometimes you don't quite know who dies. I mean, the guy he shot in the nuts could conceivably have lived. But I mean, so you don't always know who dies. But I mean, officially, per IMDb, the body count of this movie was a fairly low 34, which is a bit of a shock to me.
Well, like I said, but is Murphy on that list? Because technically, he does die, right? So,
there's no way to answer this question. But I wonder who at IMDb is doing these kill counts, because I need to see their set of standards and rules of this game. Because they're playing fast and loose with it, like it's nobody's business. So,
now I don't know how IMDb does this stuff, but I mean, it could be something that a fan put in there and edited. I know that IMDb has really kind of localized their shit. They even got rid of their message boards, which is really unfortunate because I used to talk to a lot of people on message boards. But I mean, so I don't know if it's someone that works for IMDb that actually does this and does some calculating, or if they're just like, oh yeah, I read it on the internet somewhere that 34 people died in this movie, so I'm just gonna put it in there to have an entry. But whatever. Now, Tex, you're a car guy, aren't you? You're from Texas. You're a car guy.
Yes, sir. I love vehicles.
Did you know the 6000 SUX was built from the body of a 1976 Oldsmobile Cutlass 4-door sedan?
I was really? Car was. I was trying to look at it. I'm like, it looks like something I've seen. Yeah.
I've seen the RoboCop car in person. Like when a couple summers ago, Six Flags, they did like this whole movie thing. Like they had the Scooby Doo bus, they had the RoboCop car, they had a whole myriad of vehicles. And I actually saw RoboCop's cruiser. I didn't realize it was an Oldsmobile. That's interesting. I didn't. Okay, that's actually pretty cool. I like that.
You know what's funny is the reason why they called it the 6000 SUX is because I guess they had asked one of the auto manufacturers to if they wanted to put like a car in the movie, and the shut up dog. My next door neighbor's got his dog out barking shit. But and the car company, which at that point had come out with a something 6000 or a 6000 something, they told them no. So they were like, fine, we're going to make fun of you in the movie. That's why they call it the 6000 SUX. Of course, SUX sounds like sucks. Yeah. Like the 6000 sucks, to kind of take a shot at the auto manufacturer of their new car funny. That they wouldn't let them put in the movie. Right. I was like, that makes sense. That sounds like the kind of thing that you would do in Hollywood if you want to take a shot at somebody for not allowing some product placement.
Especially in a movie.
Everything else was satire.
Yeah.
You're making fun of the car capital of the world, basically. Well, prior to that, usually.
Well,
yeah.
So a lot of you wrestling fans out there are going to get a kick out of this. The character of RoboCop, not Peter Weller as RoboCop, but the character of RoboCop made an appearance at WCW's Capital Combat in 1990 as part of the publicity for RoboCop 2, which came out that year. He rescues Sting, one of WCW's top wrestlers, from an attack by the Four Horsemen. It is widely regarded as one of the worst and most ridiculous moments in wrestling history.
And that's saying something for wrestling, too. That's really saying something.
Well, the Sting is my favorite wrestler of all time. I love WCW. I hate modern wrestling. I like old. Sting is in a shark cage, like ringside. And, like, he can't escape. How, Sting is like the ultimate good guy, right? How is Sting going to escape and save his friends and whatever? And RoboCop does his slow walk, just like he does in this movie, down the aisle, rips the door off of the shark cage, and then, Sting escapes and goes and saves his friend, and everybody's happy. But, yeah, it's on YouTube. Just put in WCW Capital Combat, RoboCop, you'll find it.
I'm going to have to go look at this now because honestly, early 90s is kind of when I stopped watching wrestling on the regular anyway. And when I was watching wrestling, I never watched WCW. I was WWF all the way. I never watched WCW.
I'm a WCW guy all the way, man. That's my favorite. I dig it.
But yeah, it's pretty funny that I read that and I was like, okay, the wrestling fans in this in the community are going to get a kick out of this. But Jeremy, I have another number that I want you to try to guess here. Again, this number seems really, really low to me after having watched the movie from start to finish in the last 24 hours. But how many times do you think the word fuck was used in this movie?
Oh, my God.
This is the count that I don't believe. I mean, it sounds about right, but I feel like it's north of this somewhere.
Well, one time because I was bored, just for fun, I sat down and watched the entirety of Scarface and took a tally of how many times it was said in that movie.
Oh, it's got to be north of 100 in that movie.
It was in the 200s. Actually, I remember.
Wow.
So I know it's not that for sure.
I don't even know.
15.
I don't know. Tex, what do you think?
I'm going to go 65. I'm going to throw out an odd number out here.
Well, Tex overshot it a little bit, but I still feel like this number is a little low. According to IMDb, the film uses the word fuck 35 times.
Oh, I'm way over. Oh, yeah.
But if I was going to err either way, I would have been like Tex. I'd have been like, I'm going a number that seems kind of high because I feel like that's about right.
Yeah.
Well, fuck is the greatest word of all time. You can use it in so many ways. It's so versatile. It is the greatest word ever. I keep telling people this, but it is.
Somebody saw that clip of Bill Connolly, didn't he? Or I think he says the phrase "fuck off" is the greatest pair of words ever.
Dude, it is the greatest word. It's just the greatest. It's just the best.
Yeah, there is some great symmetry when Clarence Boddicker finally buys the farm. When Murphy stabs Clarence Boddicker in the throat, did you notice he uses the same hand that Clarence Boddicker shot off?
Yeah,
that's true.
That is kind of fitting. There's a symmetry to that. I don't know if that was planned or if that was just like, this is the camera angle we're using, so it's going to be the right hand or whatever. But
that's one thing in the RoboCop in the remake of RoboCop, because obviously, like in this movie, they're like, "Do we need his left hand?" Like they say that in the film. That's kind of a plot point in the remake. So there is some significance. I guess it's like a callback or whatever, but it does have some value to it. But it is what it is. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's one other interesting piece of trivia that I don't believe. I don't believe it based on the shot that I just had up there. Apparently, Clarence Boddicker never finds out that Murphy and RoboCop are the same person. I don't know that I buy that, because he is very clearly standing over Murphy when he's making the kill shot, and then you have early in the film, and then in this point at the end of the film, you have him staring right at his face again. Now it never expressly says I know that this guy is that guy that I killed or something like that, and I might have to go back and listen to the dialogue again. But in all the time that he's talking to Ronny Cox's character, Dick Jones, I don't know that Dick Jones ever says, that's that cop that you killed that he put inside the robot and blah, blah, blah. I don't remember him actually saying that. So I suppose it's possible, but I don't think that he would have not noticed that in that shot right there, he's looking into the face of the cop that he killed earlier.
I think Kurtwood Smith kind of plays him as if he knows, even if it's not said. Like, even in his reaction, like, you can at least that's my perception anyways. I think he knows. I don't buy that out of it. I think that's bullcrap. I don't believe it.
I don't know. Jeremy, the way I'm kind of thinking that maybe because Boddicker has killed a bajillion people over the course of his life, that maybe
I was going to say
the faces all kind of blur together. And I would imagine there was a decent amount of time that passes from when they actually kill Murphy to when Murphy is put in the RoboCop armor, and some time passes while this movie is happening, some number of days at least, if not a little bit longer. So I feel like maybe just over time he would have forgotten. It would have mixed in with all the other faces of people he's killed or otherwise harmed. But I don't know. Do you think this makes sense, or are you kind of thinking what I'm thinking?
Well, yeah, I was gonna say he does say, like, yeah, cops don't like me. I'm a cop killer, and this is some new guy that just got transferred there. Some like nobody to him cop that he just blows apart. And I know he looks different now. He doesn't have his hair. It's just like just his face. Like, maybe, but I mean, JSP did just bring up a good point. He said that one guy, that one henchman that he recorded was like, wait a minute, we killed you. Like, wait a minute, you died.
Yeah.
And there is still time that passed after where I'm like, he probably definitely told him after that, like, hey, that guy we killed, fucking all of a sudden he's this, robot guy, which he still had the helmet on. So I don't know. That was kind of odd that he knew that was him. But remember he says that. Oh line. Yeah, he says like, oh yeah, dead or alive, you're coming.
Dead or alive, you're coming. Which is the only two times that line is actually spoken in the movie, by the way. That's what triggers him. So there's these like little things that let people know that it's Murphy. It's like Tex said earlier, Lewis sees him doing the twirling of the gun, and that's something she attached to Murphy. He hears that line. He's like, wait a minute, that guy that we killed said that. But I don't. And remember, that guy actually lives through that particular instance of the gas station. That's what I
mean.
I feel like he could have gone to Clarence and been like, hey, remember that cop that we blew to pieces?
We have a problem here.
Yeah, that guy's like full on like robo badass, and we got a thing going on here. So I feel like that's a bit of information that he would have told him. If nothing else, you feel like Dick Jones would have mentioned it at some point. But yeah, he's
not just that, but especially since Peter Welling was cast, or Peter Weller, excuse me. I was thinking of Tom Welling from Smallville. I got wires crossed here for a minute. He was cast specifically because of that jawline and how the helmet is perfectly cut out for that part of the face. I can't help but feel that was intentionally done for him to be recognized. Oh, you're that guy we killed. I think that all comes into play here. I don't buy that they didn't know. I don't. I think that's nonsense. I think that's something that was said afterwards that never was real. And I mean, because otherwise the story makes no sense. I mean, the bad guy kills the cop in the beginning, and then by the time you get to the end of the third act, you came full circle. If he doesn't recognize who he is, then he's just another cop. You know what I'm saying? So, and the whole point is Murphy.
Where do they think he came from? Where do they think he came from too? They got to know, like, oh yeah, the last guy we just killed. All of a sudden, now there's this robot guy walking around.
Right. That's what I'm saying. It takes all of the validity and the oomph out of the story for Murphy remembering and this and that. It's the hero's journey back to remember who he was. And now the bad guys who put him in that armor, they know who he was. So that makes no sense. It completely ruins the story of the film if that's true. I don't buy that. That's bullcrap.
He even kind of lives to that first encounter too. When he was beating the crap out of him, reading him his rights. He goes in there and just annihilates everybody, but then like when he looks up at him and says like, "Yeah, you're under arrest," and he's kind of like, "Oh shit," you know what I mean? He's trying to get away from him, and then when he starts turning through panes of glass, but I think he realized then.
It may not be said, "Oh, I remember you. Your name's Murphy. I shot your arm off." Like they may not say it, but just like JSP was just saying, that it's implied that they know who he is. So that's at least the story that makes the most sense to me. That's the one I'm going with. So it is what it is.
Yeah, I there's too many opportunities for him to have learned who he was. So I don't know that I buy that particular piece of trivia, but whatever. Also, I don't know. Now, Tex, you talked about how this was filmed in Dallas, but it was based in Detroit. One other small piece of trivia. The only time you see actual Detroit in this film is in the opening sequence as the camera's panning up over the water, and then it shows downtown Detroit, and that's it. Yeah. The rest of the film, all you see is Dallas.
Yeah, that skyline, that was definitely Detroit.
I've actually been to the OCP headquarters there in Detroit for the building that they used. And there was a funny story. They were going to shoot a scene at the city hall there in Dallas, but Dallas didn't want explosions at their city hall, so they had to rewrite the scene and do something different. But yeah, no, I've been to a few of the locations where this was actually shot because RoboCop 2 was in Houston, is where they filmed that movie to look for Detroit.
Yeah,
the reason why they chose.
Yeah, it's based in Detroit. It's based in Detroit. They filmed the first one in Dallas, the second one in Houston, and the third one, which nobody talks about, they filmed that in Toronto.
The reason why they chose Dallas for the first one was because of the skyline. Texas is flat. When you go to Dallas, it's got this amazing skyline that you see, but it's flat everywhere else around it. So that's the reason why he wanted that look for his Detroit. Dallas in 86, late 86 going into 87, it doesn't look like it does now, but you still had Reunion Tower. You had a bunch of stuff there that gave it a cool look. So there's a lot of cool buildings there in Dallas that, the director wanted to shoot for.
Hell yeah, but that seems like a pretty good place to start wrapping things up. But I don't know, Jeremy, I'll start with you. Give me some final thoughts, a quick paragraph on what you think of RoboCop.
It's one hell of an action sci-fi borderline horror movie. So if you haven't seen this movie, man, it's a fun ride. Like I said, I was just engrossed in it watching. I didn't even notice the matte painting shit that Frank was talking about because I'm like, I don't know. And I'm not watching on a TV from 1987 either. So I'm like, I feel like I would have noticed it if I was going to, but I don't know. Yeah, it's a fun little revenge cop story. And some deep shit about, trying to remember who the hell you were before you got blown to bits, and weird commercials intercut in between every once in a while about what you'd pay $1 for. So
at least you know your worth. That's important.
I'll say your move, creep. Go, Tex. I don't know. I'm trying to end it with a cool flip with $1 and a line, a one-liner.
Tex, give us some final thoughts on RoboCop.
Well, like I said, I put this up there with the Predators and Predator, the first one, not the second. As far as 80s actions film go, it kind of engrosses all of the aspects of the 80s. It's got some humor to it. It's got the gory action. It's got the super overdone cop drama where they're shooting 1,000 rounds, and I mean, it's just, it kind of wraps all of the genres up that the 80s really nailed down in one film. It's the satire is so deep. You can watch this movie for laughs, for kicks, or if you really want to dig into it, like we talked about a little bit ago, there's meat on this bone. So this is a must watch if you haven't seen it. And like I said, if we're doing RoboCop versus Terminator, I'm team RoboCop every time, buddy. It's not even a question. So I love me some RoboCop.
It's actually funny you say that because there is in fact an epic rap battle of RoboCop versus Terminator. So
oh my god.
I think they even made a RoboCop versus Terminator video game for like Super Nintendo back in the day.
I know they did a comic book. I don't know if they did a video game or not. But
and they have now finally they just added Terminator to Fortnite, but RoboCop was also there. So
he was also in Mortal Kombat too.
Yeah, actually both of them were, weren't they?
Yeah,
I think so.
Yeah. Well,
Terminator
they used that crappy old version of the Terminator from the newest Terminator film, not the cool 80s version.
Yeah, there was like I think it was supposed to be like a tie-in because the movie was coming out, and I was like,
it was a tie-in for the latest Dark Fate or whatever that nonsense movie was.
Dark Fate.
But yeah, you could play. I'm sure somebody has reskinned it to the good version of Terminator. But yeah, you could play RoboCop versus Terminator. I think it's Mortal Kombat 10 or 9 or 10. I can't remember. But it's one of those.
9 or 10, yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, as for me, I mean, it's a great movie from a great era of movies. It's a great Verhoeven film. I mean, he was a hell of a filmmaker. I mean, the themes that he puts in all of his movies are really, really interesting and kind of engrossing. They make the films that much better. Again, great action. The practical effects were good. Again, the matte paintings were pretty bad. They were really hazy, not fantastic. But I've softened my opinion on the effects and the stuff like that over the course of this stream. Because the guys have convinced me to give it to be a little bit nicer to it. But yeah, a great film.
Doing their best.
Yeah, it's action. It's sci-fi. It's got all the things you want from a great action sci-fi. It's got badass RoboCop doing badass things in an action movie. I really like the idea of not making Lewis a love interest. Just making her the partner and not mucking it up with that kind of emotional shit. It would have been too much to have Murphy regain his sense of love and humanity at the same time. I think just watching him take the journey back to his humanity was what the film needed, and mucking it up with a bunch of other emotional shit probably would have been bad. They kind of do that in the second movie by bringing his wife around a little bit more, but I mean, just enough to where they kind of kept him conflicted in his journey toward from full robot to maintaining some of his humanity.
Yeah.
But yeah, so guys, go see it. It's free on Tubi. Actually, the first 2 movies are free on Tubi. I think they came out with a limited.
No, I thought I saw 3 and the series on Tubi for free.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure.
I watched this on Amazon Prime. I think they're all there.
I think Amazon Prime actually has the weird
the
limited series. I think they have the weird limited series they made called.
I think so.
What the hell was it called? RoboCop Retribution or some shit like that. I forget.
Yeah.
But I've been wanting to try that because I know in one of the iterations of RoboCop, they actually his son ends up being the bad guy. Like his son had become like a drug dealer or something. So it's not so he doesn't want to just like go balls out and kill the guy. He wants to try to save his son. Or
I've never seen that. I'm like you. After RoboCop 2, I kind of forget the others exist. I tried to watch the series. I made it like 4 episodes and I was done. I'm like, I can't do this.
It's called RoboCop Prime Directives. It's it's a live action miniseries that came out in 2001. Let's see what we read about it. Created by Fireworks Entertainment, 4 feature-length episodes: Dark Justice, Meltdown, Resurrection, and Crash and Burn. All 4 episodes have been released on DVD. Paige Fletcher stars as as Alex Murphy or RoboCop. A little bit about the Paige Fletcher. Is there any actors in here that I'm going to notice? Not really. I mean, Leslie Hope, maybe. She was on 24.
What studio made that? Because I know the RoboCop rights bounced around after Orion shut down. They got sold to 2 or 3 different people.
It was created by Fireworks Entertainment, is what it says here.
Yeah, I've never heard of that.
Me neither. It was an independent studio originally founded in 91, later bought out by Jay Firestone in 96 to produce and distribute and finance television shows and blah, blah, blah. I'm sure it's been bought by 12 other people since then. Let's see. It says it takes place 10 years after the events of this film, of RoboCop. The series is largely considered an alternate reality to the films, as major events of the second and third films and television series are almost completely ignored. In contrast, the events shown in the film, Delta City is developed and OCP is not dissolved. In the movie series, Murphy's been converted to RoboCop, openly uses his legal deceased name. So now he's no longer being dead named, or he's being dead named. I don't know. Whereas this series, Murphy's identity remains secret until the 4th episode, which he is legally recognized as Police Commander Alex Murphy, formerly known as RoboCop Model 01. Let's see. Plot. Let's see. RoboCop has become outdated and tired. Delta City, formerly Detroit, is now considered the safest place on Earth, and he is no longer viewed as particularly necessary. The first half of the series focuses on Murphy's former partner, John Cable, who was slain by RoboCop after his system is hacked and programmed him to terminate Cable. Cable is then resurrected as a cyborg, of course, because that's what you do with cheap sci-fi. Most aspects identical to RoboCop models, save for different colors and additional sidearm. RoboCable is sent to destroy RoboCop, of course. Second half of the series introduced some doctor, some biotech weapon called Legion, blah, 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 blah. In the epilogue, Murphy and his allies from Prime Directives Foundation form the Prime Directives Foundation, while OCP is disgraced publicly and facing thousands of indictments in a multi-trillion-dollar class action lawsuit. Yeah, I don't know. I may have to look at this. Like I said, I saw one of them on Amazon. I don't know if they have them all on Amazon now. I'm certainly not going to buy the DVDs. I'm not going to spend money on something I'm sure is probably lackluster, but I'll have to give it a shot on Amazon. But anyway, so go watch RoboCop. All the RoboCop stuff is available on Tubi. I think, as Jeremy said, it's probably available as well on Amazon. Just go find it on the internet somewhere. Honestly, RoboCop, you could probably find it in the DVD bin at Walmart for $5 or something like that. Probably not a bad one. I personally wouldn't mind having this on Blu-ray. I think it'd be pretty cool. But thanks to all of you also who voted in the poll. Let's see. It looks like 8. Is it true? 8 of you voted, and it looks like all of you say that you like RoboCop, the first 100%er, the first 100% knockout we've had on the channel. That's not bad. Of course, I put the poll kind of late, so maybe we didn't. JSP says it's on Tubi, Pluto, and Amazon, so you have plenty of ways that you can go watch RoboCop.
Yeah,
subsidiaries.
I'm looking at Amazon. You got RoboCop, RoboCop 2014, RoboCop 2, 3. That's Transformers. I don't want that. Get the hell out of here. Prime Directives, Dark Justice, and then one called Prime Directives Meltdown. I don't know what that is.
Those are 2 of the episodes from that series.
Okay, yeah, because there's one that's called RoboCop Crash and Burn. That's Resurrection.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
I might have to give those a watch just to see if they're any good. I don't know. I doubt they're going to be, but I'll give them a watch to see. If I can make it through the first one, maybe I'll try the second one. But don't forget to come back in a couple of days. We'll be here Thursday. We're going from Texas home area, from Texas home base to mine, filmed in Santa Cruz, California. We're going to be talking about Killer Clowns from Outer Space, the 100% cult classic, one of the great midnight movies ever made. I've got plenty to say about Killer Clowns from Outer Space. One of my favorite movies, filmed in and around my hometown. Fantastic. And the movie gave us the legendary Chiodo brothers, who I could never say anything bad about. The Chiodo brothers have been involved in so many great special effects, so many great movies. The Critters movies I still want to go over. They're responsible for the Critters and the Critters movies. I love Killer Clowns from Outer Space, one of my all-time favorites. Actually, in my hometown, they got back to doing it this summer now that COVID's on, but they actually have a summer movie thing where every Friday night, or Friday or Saturday night, maybe it was Sunday, I forget. But sometime over the weekend, they'll put up this big inflatable screen on the beach and they'll show some random movie. They always end the last two nights. They always end with Killer Clowns from Outer Space, and then the very last night is always Lost Boys, which is also filmed in my hometown by and large. So it's always, and then just over the course of the summer, they have other random movies you can go watch for free. Just sit there on the beach, bring a cooler, have a couple of beers and watch whatever they're putting on the big inflatable screen on the beach. So yeah, Killer Clowns definitely a movie that holds a special place in my heart. I actually have it on Blu-ray. One of the last physical media things that I bought was probably Killer Clowns from Outer Space on Blu-ray. So come hang out with us on Thursday when we talk about that one. I can't wait to see what Jeremy's cosplay efforts give us for that one. I think that's going to be a lot of fun.
Just show up wrapped in cotton candy. That's all you got to do. Buy a crap ton of cotton candy.
Yeah, I may even have to go try to find some kind of a clown makeup or get up or something like that. I may have to try
Spirit
to
Halloween.
cosplay.
Half the store is Killer Clowns from Outer Space right now. They sell a ton of their stuff.
Yeah,
so not hard to find.
Yeah, that movie surprisingly is still in the pop culture consciousness, and it makes me very, very happy. But come check us out. Thanks all you guys for hanging out with us. We very much appreciate it. We'll see you on Thursday as we break down Killer Clowns from Outer Space. Till next time, text will buy that for $1.
I don't know about how much $1 is going to get you in Detroit, but
I mean, 1987.
Yeah.
It's like $1. It's like $1 against the ruble. Probably bought you a lot.
You know,
this is also
what kind of ammo? What kind of ammo do you think is best to shoot somebody in the dick? Do you want to go scatter shot? Do you want to go like a RIP round? Or are you going, full metal? What are you going with?
Oh no, I'm going with the interceptor rounds. I'll send you a picture of one of those here in a minute. I'm going the interceptor.
See, I like the Hornady RIP because